Welcome to the AIPC interviews, where I talk to members of the Artful Eye photography community, among others, about them. It is March 26, 2020, and on this episode, my guest is a fellow from Vienna, Austria, who has some articles published on the likes of Petapixel, Moments website, iPhoneography Central, in a piece about Pro Camera on a website called DIYphotography.net and journalism.co.uk, where in the same article, we both had some input on some iPhone photography. And his photos have also accompanied articles in some other places on the net. Welcome to Chris Feichtner.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, you are the first, not the first international guest, but you are the first European guest on the show. So we had to, schedule around the time difference, but it's only 5 hours, so it's not too bad. So how are you?
Well, I'm fine, thanks. I'm currently, I'm currently doing the same that everyone else should do, staying at home and hoping that this crisis is soon over. But other than that, I'm well, thanks.
Yeah, well, that's good. I don't know anybody personally that's been affected, but it certainly is a thing, that's for sure. And but I find the best way to get through it is to sometimes forget about it and just talk about some iPhone photography.
That's a perfect idea. So let's do that.
Yeah. So let's start with, I believe you used to shoot with a DSLR, but how did you get into shooting with your iPhone?
You're absolutely correct. My photography history goes back a few decades, and I used a DSLR up until 2012. And my switch to iPhone photography actually happened during a trip when I was in Las Vegas, taking pictures of my travels. And I used the iPhone at that point to take some quick snapshots. Then one evening, when I came back to the hotel, I had a look at the photos that I took with iPhone, and I was quite positively surprised about the quality of the photos. So they came out really, really good. And so I decided the next day that my heavy camera bag had to stay at the hotel. And I was just walking around in Las Vegas and enjoying Las Vegas and taking photos with my iPhone. And this felt somehow, relieving. For the first time, I didn't feel like a pack mule, like carrying around all the heavy DSLR equipment.
Oh, yeah.
So I could just blend into the people in the city, walk around, no camera bag needed, and just used my iPhone to take pictures. And when I got home after the trip, I was trying to find some apps that would help me to basically edit the photos on iPhone like I previously did on the computer. And so I basically made the switch. I then decided I will go iPhone only. I just kept my DSLR for a few months just in case, I find it's not the perfect route for me. But it was, and then I sold my DSLR with all the additional equipment I had. And since then I'm traveling and I'm taking photos with my iPhone only.
So it sounds like you went all in, and by that I mean with the post-processing, like your workflow and everything. You went everything with iPhone then.
Definitely, yes. And at the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle because the iPhones, from a hardware perspective, were not as powerful as, of course, a computer. And apps were also quite limited. But that changed actually quite soon. There were many apps that were released, like, for example, PhotoForge, if someone remembers that.
Yeah.
That would allow people to edit photos in a great way. And but then every year new apps came out, and as of 2020, I can edit my photos on iPhone and iPad just like I previously did on my computer. So I really don't need them anymore. And yes, I went all in. my personal way of doing things. So I saw an opportunity and I saw, okay, I will try it, I will do it, and it worked out.
And when was this? When was this trip to Vegas?
It was in 2012.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's pretty close to the time that I kind of started to think about making the transition as well. I didn't actually sell my DSLR stuff till I think it was 2016, but it was. I mean, seeing the images that you got from the iPhone, I'm sure really woke you up as far as what mobile photography can do.
Yes, definitely. So it's of course it depends what kind of photos you want to take. For example, if you need to take photos that need to be printed, I don't know, like in the large scale, it might be not the perfect choice. But for many other things, I personally believe it is a good choice. It's a good way of taking photos, and it helps you just to travel light, to travel with carry-on luggage, and so that's the way I jumped in.
Yeah, yeah, that's it's probably a very common story, that a lot of people have experienced. I think probably me included. But so, what phone are you using now then?
Right now, I'm always on the latest iPhone. So right now, I'm using an iPhone 11 Pro.
Okay.
And since then, I basically used each iPhone model that was available on the market. So I started with the first iPhone, then came the iPhone 3G, 3GS, 4, 5, 5S, and all the models
Oh wow.
that were available on the market.
That's so. Did you happen to keep them all?
No, I
Oh.
have. I think I have somewhere a broken iPhone 3GS
Oh
that
yeah.
has a crack in the screen, but it still works.
Oh wow. Because that would have been quite the collection if you still had them all. But I never kept any of mine either. I started with the 4S. That was my first iPhone. So
Okay, I see. Yeah, it's actually I recently made posted a question on Twitter, and actually many people answered that the iPhone 4 or 4S was the model where many people started to use it as a camera.
well, I think that was when I think the iPhone 4 was probably the first one that came out with a really good camera. And I think
Yeah,
maybe it might have been the fact that the display, that Retina display that came out with it, probably had a lot to do with, you know, seeing your photos in that kind of display made a pretty big difference, I think.
yeah, absolutely right, absolutely right. I believe that too, and yeah, of course, the better display also
hmm
helped with editing the photos on iPhone.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Because I think that's pretty much when Instagram kind of took off too.
Yes, probably around the same time. I remember it.
Yeah.
I
hmm
remember it. When I read about Instagram, I just downloaded it. I registered. I think I have an Instagram ID of around, I don't know, 10,000 or something. So I tried all these apps too. And if you remember, there was also Hipstamatic,
Yeah.
which was also a great app to actually start all this iPhone photography movement.
Yes. And a movement it is. It's not just a fad. It was definitely a movement. And I mean, mobile photography in general, I think, has been a real big movement. So, in the article that I mentioned, where we were both actually part of it, you talked a fair bit about Pro Camera.
Hmm.
Do you still use it regularly?
Yes, definitely. Pro Camera is actually the main camera app I use, simply because of all the fantastic features it has. So you can shoot RAW with it. Meanwhile, it has automatic perspective correction. Lots of great features that make iPhone photography just so much easier.
Yeah. Do you shoot RAW?
In many cases, yes. In many cases,
Okay.
yes.
And how do you process those?
I have three apps that I use to process my photo. The first one is Adobe Lightroom Mobile,
hmm
which is also the main app that I use because meanwhile it has grown into really great product where you can do all sorts of adjustments. You can use local adjustments. You
Yeah.
can fix perspective distortions with it. So a lot of great things that you can do. And I also love that I can start editing the photo on the iPhone and then finish it, for example, on the iPad if I need to do some more retouching.
Oh, yeah.
And that's simply great. And then I have two more apps that I use regularly. And the first one is Touch Retouch, which is also an app that I have been using, I don't know, since it came out 8 years
Yeah.
ago, probably,
Oh, yeah.
which is my go-to app for retouching photos. So for removing things from photos like power lines, poles, garbage that you see somewhere.
Yeah, it does that
And
so well.
exactly. And it's quite fast. And you can do
Yep.
this on the iPhone and the iPad. So it works really
And
fantastic.
you can also do it on the Mac. They have a Mac app as well.
Yeah, I have heard about that. I think I even mentioned it somewhere in an old blog post, but as I don't use photo apps on a Mac anymore, so
Yeah.
I'm completely trusting your word here. And
Yeah.
yeah, the third app is Superimpose,
Oh, really?
which is a great app, a Photoshop-like app where you can layer photos, you can remove the background, you can exchange the background, you can apply certain filters to it. It's great for making photo compositions. And this is the third app that I use regularly.
So in the article, like I should mention that the article is from October 2016. So it's been a while, but you mentioned in there that you use Enlight. Do you still use that at all?
No,
No.
I used Enlight when it came out with version 1, I think, because it was a really great app that allowed you to do great deal of retouching and editing on the iPhone. But then, Lightroom grew better and better, and I felt that Lightroom was simply more suited for my kind of photography. Of course, your mileage may vary, but it's just the perfect tool for my kind of photography.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about having so many different apps to choose from. You can find that one that just suits your style and your editing style and your workflow. That so you use Lightroom. I'm a fan of Lumabee, and it's a lot smaller scale of an app, but it does what I like to do, and it does it well. So everybody has their style, everybody has their workflow, and I think it's a great ecosphere to be in.
Definitely. So these apps that I just mentioned are just a few from, just like you said, there's a huge amount of apps. They are great apps. They are continuously maintained, updated. New features get added all the time. And I think what we've seen the past few years is just the beginning.
Oh yeah. It's with the technology that they're putting into these cameras, especially. I can really only speak about the iPhone. I don't know that much about the other phones like Samsung and Huawei and things like that, but I really follow the iPhone stuff closely. So the technology that they're putting into these things is just mind-blowing. And
yeah, definitely.
Admittedly, at times, I think sometimes it's a little too much. Like, it'd be nice if you could turn off some of the features, like some of the processing that gets done under the hood. Certainly if you shoot RAW, it helps, but not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah. And what you've just mentioned is exactly one of the reasons that I shoot RAW in many cases, simply to avoid all that automatic processing that's going on under the hood.
Yes.
And I do that especially when I take pictures in lost places. There are difficult light conditions in there. And this is one of the reasons I like to shoot RAW, because I don't like automatic noise reduction. I want to do that myself. And so that's actually really a great point. Why to shoot RAW?
Yeah, I was looking at some of your photos from Chernobyl on the Moment website. That must have been a real experience to go in there and shoot that space.
Definitely it was. And as I'm more towards 50 than more than the age of 40, I experienced the Chernobyl disaster on my own. So
Yeah.
I still can remember what happened back then, and we had no internet. And after 3 days, everyone suddenly was saying, "Oh, a nuclear power plant blew up, and we're all gonna die."
Oh.
And so I had the opportunity to visit Chernobyl almost exactly on the 30th anniversary. And it was really mind-blowing. It was just like walking through a time capsule.
Yeah.
Everything was still, of course, buildings were decayed and collapsed, but everything else was still like it was back then. So if you drive into Pripyat, from a distance, you don't even get any idea that this is an abandoned city. The buildings still stand there, and once you get in the city, you see, oh, there are trees growing everywhere. Do you hear the wind blowing? It's totally silent. So it's really an interesting experience. Yeah,
Yeah, like it would be kind of creepy almost.
definitely,
just not hearing any sound or anything. Did you have to take any precautions to go there?
Yes, quite a few actually. You have to book a tour. You have to hand over all your personal details. So you have to submit your passport before you go there. And then you get a list with around, 20 things to do and things you shouldn't do when you're in the zone. For example, like to wear sturdy shoes with a thick sole. You have to wear long sleeve clothing, no matter how hot it would be. You were told not to put anything on the ground. Then the most important rule of all, I think, is the guide is always right.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
If the guide tells you to get out of somewhere, then do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a good bit of information for anybody listening. Don't just go into places like this on your own, because you just don't know what you're getting yourself into. And especially a place like Chernobyl, and I'm sure there's other places that are that have some of the dangers in them too. Do your research and get permission and things like that. Don't just run into these places on your own, for sure.
I think, if I may add to that, the most important thing is to get permission, because all the lost places that I photograph, I always try to find the owner to get permission, and the owner then tells me where it's dangerous, which areas to avoid. And so, it's definitely good advice.
Yeah, for sure. So you've been published in websites and things like that. Have you ever published a book or anything?
No, I haven't published a book yet, but I'm thinking of creating video trainings for iPhone photography. Been thinking about it for a while, mainly post-processing with the tools I've mentioned previously. But let's see what the future will bring. Yeah,
so that's kind of your vision for where you'd like to go with your photography then, is to make these training videos.
It's definitely part of that. Speaking of vision, is why I write my blog and why I publish articles about that, is that I want to inspire people and that I want to demonstrate what's possible using an iPhone as a camera and as an editing device today. So, a few years ago, everyone was saying, oh, you can't do long exposures with iPhone. And then I showed them my 40-second long exposure of the London Eye. And many people just were not aware of that this is possible. And so this is the direction I want to go. I want to inspire people. I want to demonstrate what's possible while shooting, in post-production, and also to show them a few of the small corners of the world I've been to. And this is the direction I'm going, and I wanna go.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I've published a book about my transition from DSLR to iPhone photography, but it's just on the Apple iBook store, so it's just a digital copy. It would cost a small fortune to produce print books of that, so that's about as far as I've got. I've taken that, but There's a good many people out there that are putting these courses on. So, I mean, I hope that I hope that it's successful, and I hope you actually go through with it, because I think the more opportunities for people to learn, certainly the better.
Definitely. So, just like I said, I'm working on a few things, but let's see what the future will bring. I can't tell too much right now, but yeah, let's see. And I will definitely have a look at your book.
Oh, yes, thank you. It's a quick read. You could probably read it in about an hour. It's 62 pages, and I tried to make sure I had a photo on just about on every page. So,
Okay. Is it available on Apple iBooks or on Kindle?
yes, on the iBooks.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to get it ready for Kindle, but there was just so much involved with that I gave up on it.
Okay.
I just didn't have the time to put into it, but I probably could make it available as a PDF download, which might be maybe a little more appealing to people. I'll look into that, I guess, but
yeah, definitely. I think you could reach quite a few more people that way.
Yeah. So, are you basically a landscape photographer, or?
I have three kinds of scenes that I shoot. It's basically landscape. Definitely is one of those. The second one is cityscapes.
Oh yeah.
Especially, I like night photography in cities. That's just so beautiful. Photographing all these beautifully illuminated buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And the third thing is, of course, like I mentioned, are lost places.
Yeah. I would love to shoot lost places too. There's just not that many around here, unfortunately, that I can access. But I really do like the night photography. And now, do you use the like the night mode or whatever it is in Pro Camera for that?
Yes, I used it basically until now, and I still use it. Simply because I have a little more fine-tuning options when taking the photo. But for quick snapshots in a city, I use the iPhone night mode.
Oh,
but
yeah.
when shooting on purpose, not just by walking by and taking a snapshot, I use Pro Camera low light modes.
And you put it on a tripod?
Yes, I have. Usually, when I'm just walking around in the city, I always have my small Gorilla Pod with me.
Oh yeah,
that thing that you can wrap around other things.
Yeah,
and there is a nice edition that has magnetic feet, and so you can use it and attach it to a lamp post or anything else magnetic. And so in a city, you can basically turn everything into a tripod.
Oh, that is cool. I didn't realize you can get those magnetic attachments for them.
Yeah, it's just a special version. It has those red feet instead of the black or gray ones.
Oh, okay.
And the one with the red feet is the one with the magnetic feet.
I think you might have just spent some of my money, because I'm going to have to look into that.
Definitely go for it.
Yeah, because I mean, I just have a typical tripod that you could use for a DSLR. But there's been times when I don't take it because, like you said, no camera bag. It's nice to have that freedom of just carrying the phone and away you go. And, I find I leave my tripod in the car more than I take it out. So I'm definitely going to look at these Gorilla Pods with the magnetic feet for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a great way to take pictures in a city. But if I'm out in a land to take landscape photos, then of course I also still use a classic tripod.
Yeah.
You usually get very rare magnetic things in landscape, so that's
that's right. Yeah.
That's the way to go for landscape photography.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Chris. I thank you so much for coming on, and I would just like to give you the chance here to kind of let people know where they can find you online.
Okay. Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. I was really looking forward to that. And if you're curious about my photography, you can find me at nocamerabag.com. I guess you may have learned it by now.
Yeah.
And you can also find me on Instagram if you look for No Camera Bag. And you also can find me on Twitter under No Camera Bag. And this is where I share all the tips, the information, and the knowledge that I gain from iPhone photography. And I hope there's something in it for you too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna. I've already followed you on Twitter and Instagram, but I'm gonna look at your website a little more and see what else you have on there. And so yeah, that's so great. I'll put all these links in the show notes for everybody. They could just get to them that way. You can find me on Instagram at Macmillan Photo, on Twitter at Macmillan_photo, and I am Macmillan on Dayflash, and the same on mobytalk.com. And you can catch me on the Tiny Shutter podcast as well. Tonight, I think, is our next recording, so look for that one to come out soon too. So just as a reminder to everybody that I record these shows just whenever the chance comes up, and but you can look for the program on your regular podcast application of choice. Apple Podcasts, Downcast, Overcast. And just recently, we've been added to iHeartRadio, so you can look for us there as well. All the episodes and show notes are on artfulipc.com, and be sure to check the community out at artfulipc.club. And if you're not a member, it's free to join and come and say hello and see what all us like-minded individuals are up to. So thanks again, Chris, for doing this. It was a real pleasure talking to you and getting to know you a bit better. And I hope that you stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you on the interwebs.
Okay, thanks again for having me, and stay healthy, stay safe, everyone, and bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.